Hello and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. Have you ever finished a game and just been blown away by it, where you were taken aback by how it revolutionizes and reinvents a particular style of board gaming, so just flabbergasted by the way that it makes a large portion of your games obsolete by comparison? Yeah, me either. So we're going to look at Solar Storm instead.
Okay, Solar Storm by Aidan Lothar. It's a 1 to 4 player game where you are in charge of a spaceship. A spaceship is basically these 9 cards. In the center is the energy core, and these are randomly placed elsewhere. Um, Basically, they all have their little tokens for like full operability, damage. That's the premise of the game. Is by the time the game is over, how you win is you place these uh, power room diversion tokens, or that represent that you've diverted power to the core. And you need to do this for, well, at least in the base game, you need to do 8 of these, all 8 of these, and then you need to get your crew back to the core, and you win. Each player gets, well, these helpful player cards and a meeple. That's pretty simple. There's also a deck of cards with resources, 4 different types of resources, and then universal resource cards. Wow, I'm striking it rich today. So there's 4 different types of resources: energy, metal, data, and nanobots. Difficulty level is determined by how many of the universal cards are in the game. These are wild cards. Think Uno. Uno. If you have more of these in the deck, it's easier to win. If you have less, it's less easy to win. There's other accoutrements for extra actions you can store, shields you can apply, and for gathering resources, you have a die. That's it. Let's get into play of Solar Storm. To start the game, you're going to give players a certain number of cards based on the amount of players in the game. We're playing a 2-player game. Go ahead and set that over there. And each of these players is going to have their own special meeple, space meeple. To start the game, you take the bottom 4 cards, or bottom 2 cards, and for each medical bay, you knock that off, and you have already sustained some damage. So that's our starting state right there. And in fact, we'll just put those there. And the mess hall. You do want to mess with the mess hall. There it is. And then you do it again a second time. Medical bay, repair center. So we should talk about how you lose. You lose if you deplete the resources deck. You lose. More importantly, if you ever take damage to any of these rooms when there are no tokens, well, no, these cubes, you lose automatically. So there's always a constant pressure to not lose in that regard. So, on a player's turn, as we begin, all of the steps are very well lined out in these 2 cards. Phase 1, Phase 2, double-sided. So, first thing you can do is you have these options. You can move orthogonally your unit anywhere. And so, for example, if I moved here, and then I moved here, that's 2 of my 3 moves. The other thing is you can repair a room. Now, for starters, you have to discard a card with a token in order to repair it. So I'm going to discard a nanobots to repair. Look at that. That's great. So we've done that. That is our 3 actions. We also could have activated a room, but only if they're at full power, and that means taking the 2 actions. Each of these cards has some sort of special action that may be advantageous to you. In this case, take 2 action tokens when starting this room, so the next turn, when my turn starts, I'm going to get 2 special action tokens, and that gives me extra actions on my turn. Very cool. I've also repaired the room, so if we take damage in our damage phase, then we've insulated ourselves from being closer to death. Those are the 3 actions. Now you take resources. You can take 1 resources from the face-up card, or you can take 2 resources blindly from the deck. Of course, we're going to take the universal card that stands for everything. Woohoo! All right, and we're ready to go. Finally, we remove the uppermost cube from each stated room. We start out with damage level 1. The first few turns are only damaging 1 section at a time. And over time, you'll get cards that damage 2, and then finally cards that damage 3 sections at a time. Now that's it, so we're going to go play Red's turn. Red is looking for opportunities, and there is an opportunity almost, there is an opportunity. Look at that. We have a trifecta opportunity right here that I'm going to show you. I'm going to move one. Okay. If you can discard all three cards matching all of these on the left side, what you've done is diverted power here. And we place a token, and you're basically, at that point, 1/8 of the way in. However, we have to be at full power. So my second action is to discard this and bring this to full power. Now, I can discard red, green, and the nano. How amazing is that? And there. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that we're closer to victory, but it also means something else. If at any time, it's easier to repair this area. For example, if I'm down to here, and I can then take and use any kind of token, for example, like a blue. Say I discard a blue. Instead of having to discard a single card for every single one you fixed, you discard one, and they're all fixed all at once. So there's a benefit tangibly to diverting power back to the room. You can also take as a turn resources. You can roll, and if you get a 6, you can take 2 cards. If you get 5, 4, and 3, you can take 1 card. 2 and 1 means you scavenged and found nothing. If you're in the same room as another player, you can exchange resources. Each sharing, giving, and taking costs 1. Finally, if you are at, say, 2 actions and you're like, there's really nothing I can do, you can always take one of these tokens, and this allows you in a future turn to take another action. That's it. That's basically the game. What you're going to do is you're going to try and get all of these up to repair status. Everyone goes back, and yay, you win. And that's it. That's Solar Storm in a nutshell. There are additional variants, some of which were in my box, some of which were not. A couple different endgame condition changes and such, but in general, that's the core gameplay. And that's it. Let's get to my final thoughts on Solar Storm.
Okay, Solar Storm. What do I think? Well, as always, we go over the cons first. This is surprisingly light on particular negatives. The components are good, the instructions are clear, the game flow is pretty smooth, the difficulty curve well done. The only thing I ding it for was that I'm not a fan of blindness in strategy. Not knowing what is coming next, what damage is coming next ever, is kind of an exercise in guesswork that doesn't qualify as compelling to me. Let's get to the pros. It's surprisingly light on particular pros, too. There's almost nothing not seen before in a host of other previous manifestations. So, let's just get to the summary. This is one of those games when I just have to stop and say, you know what? It's not you. It's me. This game was described by one person recently as asking why this game even exists. And I thought that was really harsh. I also think it's kind of accurate. In the center of the wealth of co-op games, this one sits right in the middle in the comfy chair. It's got cubes that come and go. Check. It's got locations that slightly differ. Check. It's got actions to mitigate and advance. Check. The one big value that I got from this game is that it shows that I'm personally no longer satisfied with the cubes and friends approach to cooperative games, because I look at something like this and as I'm playing it, I'm thinking, you got colored cards to match. Well, Shadowrun Crossfire does that in spades. It's brutally difficult, but also brutally, radically interesting. If you've got your little places, or little card places for the grid of ability cards, you have Istanbul for that. I'd rather play that because that's got way more interesting things going on. If you want space catastrophes and how to mitigate them, well, you got Galaxy Trucker and you got First Martians. Any cube shuffling, insert X cube shuffling co-op game here. The one advantage is that all of the ones I mentioned is that Solar Storm is a shorter game. So it's honestly just a game that's got so few negatives and so few positives that it's almost invisible to the gaming eye. So try it if you want a filler. Use it if you need to just get over the hump to free shipping. Otherwise, it is what it is. Take care, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.